Hi, it's Kim Coleman again, candidate for Congress in Utah's 4th Congressional District, coming to you through this Facebook Live as we are continuing to be socially distanced and finding ways to get our message out and to interact with you. And it's been a very interesting campaign season. And tonight I am joined by Representative Karianne Lisonbee. And she, just remind me, what's your district again? 14, District 14. So I love to have a guest on. Sometimes it's topic based, sometimes it's just relationship based, and we've had a number of people from Salt Lake County area visit with us on these Facebook Lives. So we now have someone from up north in north of Salt Lake County, because there is something north of Salt Lake County. So welcome, Karianne. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing today.
Oh, goodness. We have spent the day putting up signs. It's been a blast.
Campaign signs.
We call it Sign Blitz Friday. So.
Okay, so you are running for re-election in District 14, and you just won the convention.
I did.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. What did you get there? What was the outcome?
87% of the vote.
87% of the vote. You won 87% of the vote. That should be like a clear runaway election nominee, but what?
Well, I'm always happy to run a campaign because it gives me the opportunity to connect with voters, and I love to hear what they're thinking and just touch base with really the people I'm supposed to be representing. So it's a good exercise for me, and I'm happy to do it.
That's a great answer, Karianne. Okay, so I'll just mention that because I have a similar situation in my race where two of the top vote getters from the convention are moving forward, me and another candidate, but we're still going to meet people on that ballot that were eliminated in the convention, but because they did collect signatures, and that's the law of Utah land now, that there are two ways to get to the ballot, but you can actually choose one, the other, or even both. So that's just kind of where we are, the pros and cons to it, but it's what we have now. Okay, so this is your second full term. You came in midterm, right, in your first year? No, you didn't. You were full term. You're full term. That's right. And you succeeded Representative Kurt Oda, who was kind of the go-to on Second Amendment issues and Second Amendment rights. And you kind of stepped right into that niche as well. So how did that happen?
I've always been a Second Amendment gal. I was just talking with a constituent this morning who called to talk, and I said, I remember 20 years ago, I had a baby on my hip, and I was at the Capitol at a Second Amendment rally, and I was holding a sign that I had made with a quote from Benjamin Franklin on it about liberty and security, and I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. So it's been a passion of mine for a long time.
Well, that's great. And I think even just backing up there, Karianne, your story that you just kind of brushed over there about your start in politics was not just when you ran for public office, but it's so similar to a lot of our stories, and I know it's very similar to mine, is before I sat on one side of the dais, I sat in the hard chairs, so to speak, on the other side of a committee dais, and walking hard floors of a Capitol building and hard steps of Capitol buildings and neighborhoods, and in being that citizen advocate for an issue. And gun issues weren't your only thing, right? What have been some of your other passions over time as a mom with a baby on your hip and being a citizen activist? What other things did you advocate for?
So a lot of people don't know this about me, but I homeschooled my 6 kids K through 12. and I served as the legislative liaison for the Utah Home Educators Association for a number of years. And so I was on the Capitol, on Capitol Hill. I was advocating for good policy that was supportive of homeschoolers' rights. And I developed a lot of relationships during those efforts that helped as I became a House member. And then I also knew the process, which was super helpful. So that was very meaningful, and I've still carried on the tradition. I spoke for and voted in favor of our most recent education choice bill, which was the one that we just overturned that veto on in the House in our special session. So
I think that's really where I met you, was as moms, as moms advocating for education choice, over the years. And I remember being up on the Capitol years and years ago when we were having problems with community councils. Well, let me just back up and kind of give the background for this. Utah school children are entitled to land that is produced on, or entitled to funds that are produced on public lands that are held in their trust, and those dollars are invested, and that investment goes to support in part our schools. And so when I really started getting active, I think one of the very early things that I was involved with, where I marched up on the Hill, was we had a law that required that committees within every school, they were called community councils, with a majority of parents, got to decide one chunk of money. It was really the only money that parents in a school got to decide on. It wasn't a lot, usually, several tens of thousands of dollars. I remember my local school was about $30,000-$40,000. It wasn't going to fund an FTE or big stuff, but it was something that parents could have a say in. But our local school was not letting that happen. The principal generally was dictating how this was going to happen. And I thought, that's not right. This is the one thing we get. We get to have a say, and we get to elect parents to that community council, and it's representative, quasi-government right there. And so we were being denied that. So I had to go to my local school board, and when we weren't satisfied there, then eventually to my legislators and asked my own representative to carry that water for us, for the community, for the citizens and parents of that school and that school district, and make sure that we had our rights recognized and those laws enforced. And so, just as a baby on my hip, some little ones at home, and learning that we can be involved in the process and that we can make a difference as a citizen. And now we're on the other side of that. And how important is that citizen voice to you, Carrie, and having been that citizen activist on the other side?
Yeah, that is a great question, Kim. And you and I know what it feels like to not be listened to not be heard, to feel like there's no way to make your voice be heard. And we also know, sometimes it's just a matter of having the right conversation with the right person at the right time. And so having been there and having really tried to advocate for significant policy change, and it was an uphill battle. It took a lot out of me the year we ran our big homeschool change bill, and I was sick for 3 months after that session, because that was the hardest thing I'd ever done, other than be a mom and homeschool my kids, and so I think it gives us good perspective when people are angry, even when they call, and this, you get a call every once in a while from somebody who's just angry and they're assuming that you're not on their side. And so I've always tried to make sure that people understand I'm on your side. We just have to have that communication to understand each other, to get to the point where we can know the best way forward and how I can help you in an effective way. So it's a great question. I think we need to have those conversations more and more as elected officials with the people that we're supposed to be serving. It's public service. It's not easy. It's hard. It's work.
It's not a career. Is this a big career move for you? Okay, so your husband's in the car with you driving, or did he step out? Okay, because
he's putting up a sign.
Okay, because I was going to ask him how part-time this legislative service it really is, and our families can attest to the fact that 45 days out of the year. I mean, that's what we get paid for, right? And we have to show up for those 45 days when a bell rings. But the rest of the year, we really are engaging with the residents, the citizens, our neighbors, and so I do like campaign season a lot too. I'm missing it right now, honestly. I'd really rather be face to face with people than looking at a camera on a Facebook Live. But while we're at it, please, if you're watching, and even if you're catching this later, please add your comments and questions, and we will get to them. And we really want this to be pretty interactive as far as possible. But so I am grateful to serve with Karianne Lisonbee, and she hit the ground running. And I think it is because of that, because we have been on the other side of being that citizen activist, knowing how hard it is, knowing there are tactics that are used against you. There are manipulations of the process. There's emotions. There are all kinds of pressures involved in the legislative process. And we've been on that side of being the citizen, trying to be heard, trying to make a difference. But I think that makes us maybe a little bit more sensitive to that. I know for me, I'm not always perfect. I've missed a few calls and texts in my time, but really trying to be available to people. So, okay, that's your school choice preference. How is Utah when it comes to school choice, in your opinion, especially with the homeschool choice?
Utah is a fabulous state to homeschool in. It really is. The bill that I worked with Aaron Osmond on, Senator Osmond, I think it was 2015, we rolled back the time requirements and the curriculum requirements. And so we are similar to a lot of the other very conservative states in the requirements that we have, which is basically you submit an affidavit. It's not subject to denial or acceptance. You just inform your district that you're homeschooling, and then you can hit the ground running. And I've loved every second of the time I've spent with my kids homeschooling and other people's kids. And there's so many co-ops, and I think there's probably close to 20,000 kids in Utah who are homeschooled at this point.
So will you please share your phone number with us for all of the parents who are trying to figure out how to do it?
That's not homeschooling. I keep saying it's not homeschooling. That's so different. But yeah, and Kim, I wanted to say too, I've really appreciated working with you. You have been so dedicated to the causes that you've taken on and followed through year after year and making sure that you're getting good policy passed, and you've done a phenomenal job for the people in the district. So thanks for your service. We're going to miss you.
Thank you. Well, yesterday, day before yesterday, I guess it is, that we, the federal government finally passed the new rules under Title IX, and that's one area I've been fighting every single year that I've been in the legislature, is trying to ensure campus free speech protections and due process protections. And we've passed a few pieces of it, but not all of it. And every year there's a different reason why, some of our colleagues on both sides of the aisle have voted against this bill. But this year it was, well, the feds are working on changing the policy anyway. Why don't we wait? But, honestly, we should not wait to see what the federal government is going to do. Some federal agency in across the country in Washington, D.C. is going to tell us as a state and our institutions what kind of policies we have. And if we didn't like the policy, we'd fight against it anyway. And we're going to have elections this year that we may get all new people. We're not. We're going to take back or we're going to take the White House again and hopefully take the U.S. House back. So that's probably the worst excuse that I've heard in my 6 years of trying to pass campus protections was, well, let's just wait and see what the feds are going to do. And so anyway, thank you for that. And you've been a great supporter on helping to protect campus free speech rights. And who would have thought that would be a hard thing to do in Utah? Who would have thought? But yeah, the federal government did pass that a couple days ago, and so now there's new policies, and but we still need to have those protections, I think, in our law. So I hope someone else kind of picks up that banner. And but recently, a reporter asked me, if you're elected, what will you do regarding education policy in Congress? And I said, guess what I said? Can you guess? I said nothing. I said nothing, because that's not the role of the federal government. So that belongs here. Those policy decisions really belong back in the states and in the more local levels. And I know you would agree with that. I don't know, how much do you love the Federal Department of Education?
Oh, it's not my favorite.
I like it better now than previous federal departments of education.
I did see that they passed those new rules yesterday, and I was reading an article about it that had kind of a left bent, and it was really interesting, the pushback that was coming. And this is just common sense policy. It's good policy. We have gone way too far the other direction.
Well,
So,
it is foundational principles for our country that we have an anticipation. We have a right to being considered innocent until proven guilty. We have a right to a whole range of due process when it comes to being accused of something serious. The Supreme Court has reaffirmed those due process rights over and over again. But for some reason, back in 2011, under the Obama administration, they just decided, let's just throw it all out the window, due process, schmooshes. I mean, just it was turned upside down, both free speech and due process. And so, getting back to that, but we're seeing that playing out on our news stations every day. The presumption of guilt until proven innocent, and Karianne, when I see some of this, and that's so foundational to our freedoms in America. And, someone asked me earlier, or they made a comment about, I would probably not want to afford Joe Biden due process or someone on the left due process. Absolutely. That's a fundamental right. And whether you're guilty, whether you're innocent, whether you're left, whether you're right, Republican, Democrat, in America, you have a presumption of innocence until proven guilty, and I don't know what we would become without that.
that's right.
So a lot of our fundamental freedoms are under attack in America, and that's one reason why I'm going to D.C. And that's one reason why you are serving in the Utah legislature. It's why I chose to serve and had the honor of representing the people of District 42 in the legislature. But Second Amendment, let's go there, another fundamental right. So jumping from First Amendment right to Second Amendment. So you have carried some pretty good legislation on Second Amendment, and one was one of my favorites because it came from my daughter. So it was inspired by Hannah, and Malia, you might know her as. So share with us what that bill did and why that was a good bill.
It was so fun to work with her too. She was fabulous. So, and this was, it was my first session, right? And I was talking with Clark Aposhian the other day, and he said nobody thought that bill was going to pass. Nobody thought it was going to pass. Nobody even thought it would get out of committee, and which totally shocked me because I was like, this is so common sense. We're totally going to pass this bill. But it was the 18-year-old provision carry permit, so it allowed 18-year-olds to 21-year-olds to have a provisional permit. And the reason we did a provisional permit was so that we wouldn't infringe on the reciprocity agreements we have with other states. Sorry, now I have the sun in a weird way. But anyway, and I have heard from many, many college students how much they appreciate having the ability to carry on campus. They feel like they can protect themselves, and just the knowledge, the deterrent effect of knowing that there are kids carrying, or not kids, young adults carrying on campus that are ready to protect themselves. That deterrent effect is huge and can't be overestimated and overstated. So I was really excited to work with Hannah on that, and it passed everything, and it didn't even get amended. It just passed and became law, and the governor didn't veto it, and it was amazing.
Well, and I think, a freshman. So
first year freshman, but I think we're one of only 2 states that have a provisional permit now. So
that's great. That's great. And that did arise out of my daughter coming home one weekend from college and saying, everything we're taught in orientation, and we're warned, all the time that there's a high rate of a likelihood that you're going to experience a sexual assault on campus. And she said, why can't I protect myself with the most effective way of preventing a completed rape? And so I love that she had that experience with you as well, Karianne, that she could experience the legislative process that way and be able to testify as a citizen that at kind of a young age that she, I like how you involved her too, and that she could see at her young age that she can make a difference in the legislative process too as well. So what else? What else do we need to do when it comes to 2A? So we have a 2A caucus, the Second Amendment caucus, and you've been very active with that, kind of leading and nudging and growing it. And what do we need to do in Utah? What are the big threats and opportunities that we have legislatively in public policy?
Well, you've seen 2 sessions in a row, the storage liability issue brought forward. You've seen the red flag bills. You've seen the universal background checks, and all of those are misguided policies that aren't going to help Utah residents protect themselves and their families and exercise their fundamental right to do so. The opportunity that we have, and I'm super excited about, who's going to be our next governor, because this is really the question for constitutional carry, because Governor Herbert has said very publicly and very openly that he would veto any bill, and we even had one bill this session. Representative Brooks had a bill to introduce open carry again, and it was similar to the bill that Senator Hinkins ran, 3-4 years ago maybe. But again, the hurdle was it's going to get vetoed, and do we have the ability to override? And so I think it's going to be a brand new conversation that happens next session. I'm excited to have that conversation.
So that is something, as you mentioned, that is something to ask the governor candidates. Would you support open carry? It's something to ask your legislative candidates right now, too, because they're all up. The House members are all up for election or re-election this year. Some are in primaries. And that's a very, very important question. So the 2 of my favorite bills were carried by Cory Malloy that didn't pass. And
the preemption bill, yes.
I love the preemption bill. The preemption bill that says basically Second Amendment rights are promulgated by state law, and you can't have a city restrict your Second Amendment rights more than the state law. And what happened to that bill? That was a great bill.
Yeah, they held all of the gun bills in the Senate in rules. They did not let any of them out. And it was so frustrating because Cory has been running that bill for years. I mean, he's been running it I think this was his third session that he ran the bill. But this was an even better bill than before because we clarified language that even counties, I mean, you talked about cities, but Salt Lake County is infringing on people's rights because they have preemptively decided to require universal background checks at gun shows that are held in the venues that they control. And they've done this by misinterpreting the law. And so Corey's bill contained clarifying language. And it's so important that we pass that bill. So I was actually texting Corey about that yesterday, and hopefully we can get it on an interim agenda and have that discussion through the interim.
Okay, so let's be clear, because I like to make sure people understand where this is happening in my county, where I live, and I am a strong proponent of our Second Amendment rights. I have voted against every opportunity or every effort to restrict your Second Amendment rights. I've voted against universal background checks. I've voted against red flag laws. I've voted against expanding gun-free areas unnecessarily. And so, but in my county, they are restricting your gun rights on public property and public venues. But here's really what they said, and you know, it's one of these times where I don't know if I want to laugh or if I want to just be so frustrated. But they sat on the stand and actually said, well, we're not. It's the third-party management company, and they're private, and as a private entity, they get to decide what they want to do when it comes to Second Amendment rights. Oh my gosh, is that a backwards, upside-down county that does not understand that manager is a public actor, and that no, you can't hide behind your third-party management companies. Unbelievable. So I love that bill.
Yeah, and there were times, Kim, when you were the only person voting against bad gun bills this past session. So good job.
Thank you. Wait, could you say that again?
Good job.
So yeah, there were times, I mean, there were just a few bills where I felt like, is anybody else going to speak up with me? But Corey, the other bill I really liked that Corey had was last year, and the resolution that he had that walked through all, it basically just listed all the Second Amendment protections we have, as well as the things that limit criminal activity with use of firearms, and so kind of that whole balance of the public safety with the Second Amendment rights. And I think that's really what we all want is to ensure safety, ensure that people who aren't supposed to have guns don't get guns, but the people who do, and law-abiding citizens, the Constitution says that it shall not be infringed, and we have that right. So let's see. The other thing you've taken on some heavy lifting bills. Pro-life. Talk to us about your pro-life bills.
So I ran the Down Syndrome Non-Discrimination Abortion Act 2 years in a row. It failed in the Senate on the last night. That was heartbreaking for me when I ran it the first year, and then the second year we got it through and it passed, and that was just a huge hurdle. The conversations that have come from running that bill are so important. Do we value, and it's apparent that there's a large contingent of our population that does value human life based on what that human life can potentially contribute in a certain way. And so, I had comments from people saying, "Don't make me carry something that's defective." And and that so dehumanizes a human life. And especially, you know, people with Down syndrome. I know people with Down syndrome. I have friends that are people with Down syndrome, and they are some of the most loving, kind, charitable, happy people that you could ever meet. And what a joy, the joy that they bring to my life and to the lives of all around them is just incredible. And so I think starting that conversation of what kind of life do we value? Do we value all life because it's human life, or do we make distinctions? Do we draw lines? And if we do, where do those lines stop? Do they stop after birth? Because in Europe, they're already talking about post-birth euthanasia of children with disabilities. Do we want to go there? Do we want to have those kinds of, I mean, so we have to have these conversations. This year, I ran the fetal remains bill, and I loved that bill. I actually was just the House sponsor on it, but I had it in drafting and gave it to Senator Bramble, because he had a specific constituent story that was very touching, very moving, and so he wanted to take it through the Senate, and I was happy to let him. But yeah, the fetal remains bill was so important because I heard from so many mothers and women who had miscarriages and were not allowed to take the fetal remains from the hospital. They were incinerated along with medical syringes and blood bags and all kinds of other things. And this is human life, and it needs to be treated with dignity. And so the bill required that all human life is treated with dignity, no matter when that life ends. So
I love that bill too. That was a great bill. I think some of the things that when we look at life, the life issue, pro-life versus pro-choice, it's ongoing, and we've, like you mentioned, we've seen some really extreme thinking proposals on the side of choice, and it's horrific, really. It's horrific. Give us the stats on abortion in America. I know they roll off your tongue pretty well.
Well, lately I've been thinking, and maybe you have too, but yesterday I read an article about the heavy price we're paying by opening up the economy and all the lives that will be lost. And I keep thinking, nobody's talking about all the lives that are lost to abortion every day, no matter what is happening in the economy. And you know, I don't have the statistics for the country at my fingertips, but in Utah, we kill about 10 babies a day, and that's a lot of babies. That's a lot of human life, especially when you look at the CDC actually put out some research where they valued human life with a monetary dollar sign, saying, you know, every human life is worth about this much money, and I think it was between 10 and 20 million, if I remember right. And if that's true, as a country and as a state, why would we be allowing the ending of human life in such an inhumane and barbaric way? And it's just tragic to think about what these babies go through, and the pain and the suffering. And so
we've had legislation. You mentioned Senator Bramble on prevention or limitation of pain that aborted babies or babies that are being aborted can experience. And Cheryl Acton, Representative Cheryl Acton, she had a bill that did pass that is an 18-week prohibition, and that's a great bill. And they're really that we have to continue to be very vigilant about the dignity of life, about protecting life, and really it's through the whole life cycle. Really, it's not just unborn babies. It's do we as a society value life, and at all its stages, and that all of these things that we've talked about today, our First Amendment rights to speech and due process, our Second Amendment rights to arm ourselves, our rights to life, that we, in 2020, we still have to fight for some of the most basic things. Doesn't it seem that we should be at a point where these things are a little bit more automatic, where we're evolved or enlightened? Some of these things should just be automatic and in America. But we have to continue to fight. And I'm leaving the legislature, so you guys have to continue a lot of these fights. And I am grateful to know that there are people like you, and looking at maybe some of the new people that are coming in. Not a lot of women either, so we don't. Karianne and I don't talk a lot about that factor, but it's there, and we have just great legislators, and we frequently vote in a small group of 12, 15 or so people, because we're conservative. We're real conservatives, and we try to hold the line on growing government. We try to hold the line on taxes, on regulations, try to roll back legislation or regulations. And Karianne has been a strong proponent of all those things, basic fundamental rights, and holding the line on government infringement and government growth and government imposing in your life. And so we just have like a minute or so. I want you to talk to us about why the people in District 14 should re-elect you.
Well, I'd rather talk about why the people in Congressional District, what is that?
4.
Should re-elect you, or should elect you, because we need you in Washington. But I appreciate the voters in District 14, and I appreciate serving in such a great district. I really feel like my district is very, very conservative, and they understand these issues, they get them, and they're very communicative with me. And so I just appreciate serving in such a wonderful district for such wonderful people. And really, the entire state of Utah is a wonderful place to serve. And Kim, you've served your district well, and I know that you will continue to be a voice for conservative values and for true American principles. So thank you for all you're doing.
Well, thank you. I think I like to bring this up every night. I like to remind people that what we're experiencing right now, and there's so many still unknowns. And when the COVID pandemic started, we didn't understand a lot. I don't know that we understand a lot more, being a month or so, a month and a half later. But people are asking me all the time, can the government do this to us? Can the government really tell my business to shut down? Can the government really tell me to stay home? Can the government really establish a hotline for my neighbors to report me if I have a barbecue in my backyard? And I say, yes, they can, if you let them, if we let them. And we say them, I say them because I'm part of them, but I'm one on the side of the people and upholding your rights, and the ones we're questioning the crisis, and we are really always trying to respect and enforce our rights. But so this is what I tell people, Karianne, every day, is you're seeing this in a big way, in a black and white way. Government, their thumb in your life like you've never seen it before, really. That they've told you, go work from home, go stay home, wear a mask in public, and all these things, and shut down your business for now. And when this is over, I hope you continue to ask that question, because for a lot of people, it's the first time they're asking this question. But for you and I, this is the question we ask every day. This is the question that took our feet marching up on a hill, right? On a Capitol Hill. These questions: can the government really say that I cannot teach my own children at home? Can the government really make it hard for me to teach my own children at home? And things like this, can the government make? And, it's really up to citizens to hold the line on government because of three awesome foundational words: we, the people, right? And so I hope and I encourage everybody that when this is over, when we're on the other side of this pandemic and whatever that process looks like, that you ask the question that Karianne and I have asked every day as we've served in the Utah legislature: should the government do this? Can the government do this? Is this a proper role of government? How many times have you and I had that conversation? Is this a proper role of government? Should we be doing this? And sometimes we're taking some positions where we're in a minority. Sometimes, too often, I think. But Karianne is an amazing legislator. Hit the ground running again, because I think you're a mama bear first, and the government's not going to come between us and our kids. And but learning that process and advocating with and for our neighbors, and so you just hit the ground running. You've taken on the tough issues, and you've been a great success at it, and really an example of a great representative in touch with your people and carrying their water. And I just love where you are on policy, because you understand your North Star is what I regard as my North Star, and that's that Constitution that you and I have both raised our arms to pledge allegiance to a country and to uphold the Constitution. So I'm grateful for that. And you need to give her 2 more years to keep representing you really well if you are in District 14. But, okay, hold on. My producer's giving me a signal that I'm not sure what it is. Okay, all right. Okay. So do you have anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No, just vote for Kim.
And vote.
Great. And we need her in Washington.
Thank you. And vote for Karianne if you're in District 14. So thanks again for being with us tonight. And again, in this thread, if you want to leave any questions, I will come back and answer them. Karianne will look over this too. And look for us next Monday as well. I think we're going to do some things tomorrow. Look for us live again. Some live opportunities tomorrow. But I'm grateful to have served the people of District 42, and I do look for your support. If you are a citizen of Congressional District 4, I would love the privilege of serving you in Washington and bringing our conservative values to D.C., because they are not being represented right now. So we need a big change, and I'm looking to do that, and I need your support. Go to kimforutah.com. Karianne, give us your website. Do you have one?
Karianne.org.
Karianne.org. So find us there, and we're looking for your support, your votes. Donate as well. We need that too. So thank you so much. Have a good evening, a great weekend, and happy Mother's Day to everybody too. Happy Mother's Day to you, Karianne. All righty.